Junior Miner Weekly, StockPulse.com production. We keep track of the equities within the commodity sector, find the best companies looking for hidden treasures. With me is Allan Berry from the Allan Berry Reports to run through the bigger equity news and add to the Christmas shopping list of bargains we established last week, with seasonality being the theme. Al, before we unwrap that list for this week, what are your thoughts on current week activities here in the sector?
Yeah, Rob, thanks for having me again. And I've got a few points that I wanted to get across. First of all, I just as I was getting ready to do the show, I saw Ray Dalio's big mutual fund is about to, they're going $1 billion short on the market. And I think that's probably a pretty good move. The New York Stock Exchange and those big cap stocks are priced for perfection. And when it comes to earnings growth, I don't think perfection is coming. I think that this is a bullish situation for the mining stocks, because I can see with gold, we've got a lot of things pointing towards higher gold prices. You've got debt growing faster than GDP. Chairman Powell talked about that this week. That is not a good situation. You've also got the negative yields, now probably nearing $20 trillion worldwide. You've got QE to infinity. After they lowered the balance sheet of the Fed, now they've gained back 40% of what they lowered. So they're going to be back up to past where they were post 2008. Very quickly, and those are all very good bullish things for gold. You've also got, I believe what's causing this short-term repo market problems is that China is not happy with the trade war, and they're starting to put the screws to the U.S. That's why we're starting to see the quantitative easing growing so fast. And I don't think that's going to end anytime soon. And so you've got this market situation, you've got things pointing to higher gold prices, and then we've got seasonality with the gold stocks that I think you only got a few weeks left of these cheap stuff, Rob, and then we're going to have a much stronger market into the end of the year and going into the new year. So that's why I think people want to be paying attention to these shows we're doing, and I've got some more set up for today to talk about.
Yeah, let's get right into those bets, as we like to call them here. First one on the list here, Marathon Gold, Valentine Gold Project in central Newfoundland. Matthew Manson runs that show. Why don't you run through that one?
One is the stock has been really powerful. The chart is very strong. The 52-week low is 67 cents. The high is $1.72. Earlier this week, they had some very good news out, and I think that they're going to be sort of in a lull here for the next month or so with news. So as strong as the stock's been, I think that this is one you want to see maybe let it roll over a little bit. Look to try to get it a little closer to $1.20 range. But this is a very strong project. I think this company is a takeover target, and they've got a future mine out there in Labrador. And if you can get it on any kind of cheap pullbacks, I think that's where you want to be looking at accumulating MOZ.
Okay, next one up here, Osisko Metals. I'm going to start drilling at Pine Point here. I know one you've picked in the past, and some smart guys in this one.
Yeah, Osisko's been a really nice pick for me over the years. I originally picked the original Osisko when they were about $1. They ended up getting taken over. Now the Malartic mine is one of the best big mines in Canada. And then they've sort of they created a royalty company, they created an exploration company, and this is the Osisko Metals is their exploration efforts. They are about to crank up the drilling, as you said, on their Pine Point project. The 52-week range is 42 cents on the low, 72 cents on the high. Currently trading at 49 cents as they're about to crank up the drilling. I think that this one is one you want to put on your buy list right away. These guys are very good at finding mines. strong mine finding team, and you can get it for just about at the 52-week low, maybe right at the low if you're patient. But I don't think you want to let this linger too long to add to the portfolio, because I think once they crank up that drill, anything can happen with the stock.
Yeah, how much lower could we let these things go anyway? So
Yeah, exactly, Rob. You've got one of the best exploration teams on the planet, and they're cranking up the drill on one of their top prospects, and the stock's trading within 5 to 7 cents of the 52-week low, which is indicative of the seasonality situation, Rob. We've got this seasonality we keep talking about, and there is a perfect example of, this one. I don't think you're going to be seeing it at near those 52-week lows once we go into the new year and get through this tax loss selling season.
this one's interesting to me. Japan Gold Corp, JG on the venture. John Proust, the CEO. A drilling update here from Far East. Take us through this one.
Yeah, Japan Gold is very interesting for a few different reasons. One, they just had out news on two fronts. One, they gave a very good update on their exploration efforts, and then they got awarded some new exploration ground as well. Why I'm interested in this one so much, Rob, is one of the best low sulfidation epithermal gold mines in the world is in Japan. It's called Hishikari. Tremendously high grade. You're looking at average grades of like an ounce. They have some underground workings that you can actually see the gold just dripping off the walls, Rob. But there hasn't been any exploration in decades. And recently, they opened up the exploration to the foreigners, and there's been two companies that have gone in there: Irving, IRV, and Japan Gold. Those are the two leaders that are way ahead of the curve. And Irving's done really well recently with some drill results, and Japan Gold is, I think, right on their coattails. These epithermal vein systems are not easy to figure out because there's zonation of the grade from the top of the system to the bottom of the system, and you got to be in that boiling zone. And so sometimes it can take a while to figure out where you are in the system and then tag that boiling zone. But I really like the ground that Japan Gold has, and the people that are involved with it. And the 52-week range on that one is 10.5 cents on the low, 43 cents on the high, currently trading at 22 cents. So it's, biased to right at the middle of the range, and with lots of work happening. So that's one I think you want to put on your on the radar screen for take action fairly soon on.
Take a break here from the shopping list and play an in-depth drill-down interview Allan Berry Laboucan conducted with Kelly Malcolm, VPX of Amex Exploration. Amex trades as AMX on the Venture Exchange and AMX EF, the OTC QB in the States. Quite an in-depth drill-down. Here it is.
Hello, everybody. It's Allan Berry Laboucan here from the Allan Berry Reports and StockPulse.com. We've got a very exciting company for you today. Amex Exploration is a company that I've been following for about a year now, and they've got a tremendously good exploration project for high-grade gold in Quebec. And today we've got Kelly Malcolm, who's the VP Exploration, on to tell us about that. How are you doing today, Kelly?
Doing very well, thanks. Excited about the grilling, Allan.
Well, I won't put you under too much heat there, Kelly. What I think we should do, Kelly, is why don't you start from the start? We'll go into the who, what, where, when, and whys. And why don't you go to the start of why you guys acquired this, the project, and then we'll lead towards where we are today and going forward, and I'll pop in for a few questions every once in a while.
Sure. So this is kind of an atypical exploration project in that we've had it in the company's hands since 1996. It was optioned on the backs of a gold discovery made on what we're calling now the Gretien Gold Zone. So we picked it up then. We've had it in good standing ever since. It's been sitting on the shelf with sporadic periods of work applied to it. So in the 90s, there was a small work program done. In about 2008, there was another drilling program done. And then in 2013, we had some flow through in the company, drilled a few holes, and intercepted a pretty interesting zone of semi-massive to disseminated stringer sulfides that looked very similar to Agnico Eagle's LaRonde mine.
And where is that in relation to Perron?
That's right smack dab in the center. We call it actually the Central Polymetallic Zone. So that was 2013, I believe hole 2013-03. Within about 2 months after that discovery hole, we actually signed an option deal with Agnico. And that deal stipulated they had to spend $4 million over 4 years in order to earn 51% in the project. So from 2013 through to June of 2017, they spent around $3 million, ended up returning the project back to us in June of 2017 without having earned any interest in the project.
Kelly, what kind of work had they done to spend the $3.5 million?
So they did a beautiful VTEM helicopter survey across the entirety of the project. They did some IP geophysics, they did some downhole EM, and they drilled a few thousand meters of drilling. Like I mentioned, looking for a LaRonde type VMS. So a massive, call it 20, 30, 40 million ton VMS system. And they were unsuccessful in doing so, but they did great work, provided great geophysical data. And we got all that information back in June, and we hired a firm out of Quebec called InnovoXLO, and they did a really good job of compiling all that information in 3 dimensions and identified a number of different drilling targets for us. We embarked on a drilling campaign in November and December of 2017, and on our 3rd hole in that program, we intercepted the discovery hole into the Eastern Gold Zone. We then waited about a year to get back on the ground and get the drills spinning. So we launched the basically current exploration program at the end of November of 2018. And that's really when the Eastern Gold Zone share price really started to appreciate.
That's when I came in and they and made, I think it was early in your drilling in November, when I made them a pick, you guys were at about 50 cents. So you're a year or so later, you're up 100% from then, and you've continued to drill. And but things have sort of changed since then, from looking for a VMS deposit to these high-grade veins. So why don't you give us a little color on what you've hit in this Eastern Gold Zone, the high-grade zone, and that sort of stuff?
Sure. So the Eastern Gold Zone, when we first drilled it, it was actually a big IP anomaly. It was associated with the Denise Zone, or what we previously called the low-grade zone. That's a big wide zone, about 100 meters wide, of disseminated sulfides with disseminated gold and really good ceres and some clay alteration. So it was a beautiful geophysical anomaly. And as we were drilling into that big IP anomaly, we actually drilled through the high-grade zone.
It sits right beside that low-grade zone, right, Kelly?
Absolutely. So it's a parallel structure spaced about 100 meters away from the low-grade zone. It's comprised of 2 quartz veins with usually abundant visible gold, sphalerite, and some pyrite. And it's pretty simple vein-hosted gold mineralization. But we've hit some very, very high-grade hits, as evident in our press releases over the past year.
Well, that's even true of your low-grade zone, because what caught my attention in that low-grade stuff was right at the contact of the vein and the country rock there. That's where you're getting some high-grade, even in the low-grade zone, correct?
So our deepest hole that we've drilled in the low-grade zone returned, I think it was 6.9 grams over 32.x meters with a high-grade core, just like you're mentioning, right at the footwall of that, of about 39 grams over 4.9 meters or so. So it seems like as we're drilling down to depth on that lower grade zone, that we're seeing an increase in grade.
That's something that got me really excited as well about the project, Kelly. When we talked at the PDAC, when I was looking at the two parallel veins, it looked like they actually have the potential of coming together at depth, and then you could have a much bigger plumbing system. Instead of like two arms, it's two arms coming off a body sort of idea.
It's been a hypothesis of ours is to see as we keep going down to depth, if those two systems join together, it could be really interesting. But even as standalone parallel structures, really intriguing. The high grade zone plus this lower grade zone becoming richer at depth. And we're really excited about continuing to drill that system down a few hundred more meters.
Yeah, because that's the nature of these kind of vein systems in the old rocks there. They tend to go very deep. Is correct, Kelly?
Yeah, oftentimes in the Abitibi, there's usually a pretty significant vertical extension on these systems. There's a rule of thumb. I think it's for every meter of strike length you have, it's oftentimes 7 to X times greater depth extension. But again, you never know until you start sticking drill holes down that deep. But usually the Abitibi is known for pretty significant depth extension on these different zones.
And now you're also I think you also drilled what looks like another vein in between those two. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's I think we call that Denise 1, and it's lower grade mineralization, but it's really encouraging having it right in between the two. What we also did was we did a 600 meter step out on strike. We announced that about a month or so ago, right before we announced our $8 million bought deal financing. And that hole was really interesting because we hit visible gold 600 meters along strike, indicating to us that the system continues to the east. And whether or not it's the same vein or the same zone, it's really encouraging that we're still seeing that structure extending along strike.
Well, especially if you put it into the context of what you said earlier about the 7 to X times strike is what you can get in depth.
And then the other thing that is really intriguing for us is the additional zones we've been working on, which is the Gratienne zone and the Grey Cat zone. Both of those are showing a lot of promise. Both have hit very high grade gold. And we're really looking forward to testing those this coming winter and continuing to define those zones and hopefully build them up into economic resources.
Now, all of these zones are contained inside a package of rocks that you can see in the geophysics. What sort of dimensions are you looking there? And let's call it the prospective rocks.
We're looking at a pretty significant volume. We're actually in the middle of a drone magnetic survey, which has been, at least on a preliminary basis from the data we've seen, is going to be fantastic in helping to identify structures within that package. But overall, we've tested about 3 kilometers of strike from the end of the Gratienne across to the end of the Eastern Gold Zone, or at least the end insofar as we've drilled. The southernmost break is about 7 kilometers long in terms of overall strike length, where the thrust fault meets the rhyolite and the andesite. And then to the north, there's also another thrust fault that bounds that rhyolite package. And that fault is about 8.4 kilometers from tip to tip. So there's a whole lot of strike length to test along
like
these
15,
faults.
is my math wrong? Like 15 kilometers or something like that?
Your math is bang on, Allan. It's about 15 kilometers of strike of prospective ground. And then in between those two faults, we think there's the potential for hosting mineralization essentially in that entirety of that triangular wedge.
And the veins are coming up into that rock, and you've only touched maybe what, 10 or 15% of the overall package?
Yeah, I would say 20% maybe maximum. And that was largely due to access roads that were built in the past for logging. And we haven't really tested much further. But this winter, we're allocating 20,000 meters of diamond drilling to testing these sort of untested strike extents along these major faults. That is possible due to the large financing we just recently announced.
Inside that package of rock, Kelly, what's sort of giving you the way to vector in to tag these zones that you're tagging?
So our gold recipe that we've been working on and kind of refined over the last
Oh, I
year.
like that. Gold recipe. That's a heck of a term there, Kelly.
I like it a lot too. The recipe for us is we like to see cross structures. So I mentioned we have these two major thrust faults, the Normatal and the Perron fault. And these roughly run east-west. What we like to see are east-northeast trending, we call them third-order structures that intersect both of those faults. So we like them to be substantial enough to have a relatively deep plumbing system. So those are where we're finding most of our mineralization. And then to vector in further, we like proximity to high magnetic mafic to ultramafic intrusions.
Yeah.
We like mag lows in association with these third order structures that we think indicate alteration of the primary wall rock minerals. And we like to see a weak or subtle geophysical response either from airborne EM or from ground IP that's been done.
And so you have this recipe, and that's how you found the zones that you know so far. How many additional targets fall into this recipe?
So on our presentation that's up on our website, I think it's the last or second last page, we've got a really cool targeting slide. And that shows, I believe, 6 or 7 additional targets that we consider priority 1 that have never seen a drill hole, that share all these key criteria and are all being currently covered with our drone magnetic survey. Once that's completed, we're bringing our 3rd drill rig onto site by around the 5th of January, and that's when we'll start testing these additional targets.
Wow, it really sounds wide open there for you guys, Kelly. And I think that part of the reason why some of those targets haven't been ever looked at is because some of these veins are kind of blind, aren't they? They don't come right to surface. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a thin layer of overburden basically covering the entirety of the property. So prospecting, good old-fashioned prospecting, doesn't really work here.
Yeah.
The other reason that a lot of this stuff hasn't really been looked at is that this was often thought to be a base metal project. Because of the proximity to our neighboring mine, which is the Normatal mine, a lot of the exploration work that was done here in the past has been focused on looking for additional VMS deposits. We've had explorers like Teck has been in this project, Falconbridge, BHP, Shell Minerals, all these old base metal explorers. What they would do in the past is fly an airborne EM survey, follow up with a ground EM survey, and drill the biggest and strongest conductors. And that's really, it works very well for exploring for base metals. But gold is a much more subtle.
Yeah, because you're looking for veins there instead of some big ore body. You're looking for the smaller high-grade veins, correct?
Absolutely. And they're usually a lot more difficult to find, more of a needle in the haystack than something that really pops and stands out to you.
But now you guys have sort of unlocked the mystery of it all, of how to get your gold recipe. So you guys are having a lot of success finding and following the known zones and looking for new ones.
Absolutely. We've had a really good year. Our technical team on the ground up north is really fantastic. And they've come up with a bunch of really wonderful ideas for vectoring. And I'm really looking forward to the January exploration program on the regional front.
Now, let's talk about, that sort of gets us to where we are now, Kelly. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your team? You've got some rock stars on your team, don't you, Kelly?
Yeah, we've got an awesome management team. So the president of the company is Victor Cantore, who you've met in the past. Victor is a capital markets guy. He's financed a number of different exploration companies over the past 20 or so years. He was the vendor of the Nemaska Lithium project into Nemaska Lithium back in 2007, and has helped a number of different junior companies sort of build and finance and continue to explore. And our chairman is Jacques Trottier. He's a PhD in economic geology, and he was the founder of a company called Sullivan Exploration, who was bought out in 2014, I believe, for $600 million.
Wow.
And he built that from a conceptual idea to greater than 3 million ounces of gold. And that's currently being mined by Pan American Silver at the moment down in Peru.
Wow. That's a strong team, a strong project, and something else that really stands out for you guys is that you're in Quebec, which is one of the best jurisdictions in the world for exploration and mine development, and then you've got infrastructure all around you, right? There's roads and everything right there.
So Quebec has been a really great place to explore. I've done a lot of my exploration in Ontario and the Yukon, both of which are very good places to explore as well. But Quebec has the benefit of the government significant financial incentives. So in 2019, most of our work has been done using hard dollar financings, and we will receive about 30-ish% of all the money that we spent in the ground back from the government as a tax incentive.
Wow.
And then in 2020, we did this flow-through financing, the most recently announced one, and we've received a significant premium on the flow-through, again, because of the Quebec mining incentives. So it's an awesome place to explore. They're very pro-mining here.
Yeah.
And we, like you mentioned, we do have really great infrastructure. You can drive right to our core shack. It's about a 6-hour drive from Toronto. We've got power on site, cell phone service on site, access to water. It's a really great place to be exploring for gold.
Well, it's one of my favorite places. I've only ever followed a few companies out there. One of them in my report was Virginia Gold with Andre Goumond and Osisko. I've started following Osisko when they were first hitting up at Malartic. Their earliest holes, I think the stock was around $1 or something like that. And now you guys, so I think in my eyes, you guys are in some pretty heady company there, Kelly.
I'm happy to be at the same table as those guys, believe me.
Yeah, you can say that again. Well, Kelly, I think you've touched on everything up till let's take one last look going forward.
Sure. So we have 2 drills actively spinning on the project right now, focused on expansion and definition of the Eastern Gold Zone, the Gratienne Gold Zone, and the Grey Cat Zone. And in January of 2020, we'll bring our 3rd drill rig on site. People can look forward to continued news flow. We've got a pretty good track record of putting news out every 3 to 4 weeks, and we expect to be able to continue doing so, possibly even at a bit of an increased pace now that we'll have our 3rd drill on site. That's kind of the game plan for the time being is continued exploration and definition of our known zones. And like I mentioned a few times, we're really looking forward to our regional exploration program testing the remainder of those 15 kilometers of prospective faults.
And you just, how's the treasury looking so that people can get a sense of, how well you're looked after going forward to crank those drills all year through 2020?
Sure. So we announced an increase once we announced the close of our financing. We announced an increase of our drill program from 40,000 to 100,000 meters. So that'll be about 60,000 meters drilled in 2020, fully financed. We've got a little over $10 million in the bank at the moment, and we have a tax receivable from the Quebec government of roughly $2 million as well. So we're in a very, very healthy financial position, cashed up, ready to rock.
Lots
on
of
site.
lots of drilling, lots of news, and Eric Sprott was participated recently. I think,
Correct.
right?
He participated in the two most recent financings. So there was a $5.4 million financing in March, and this current, I think it's $8.9 million, which should be finalized shortly.
Well, he's got a pretty good nose for gold. You guys got a pretty good nose for gold. You got lots of money to drill. I recommend that anybody that's interested in exploration for gold, especially high-grade gold in a well-known district in Quebec, Amex is a company you want to know about. Amex is their symbol. Go check them out. Look at the website. Call them up. These guys are really good at telling their story. Kelly, thanks a lot for coming on and doing this show for us. You've been generous with your time.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. And you didn't grill me too hard, so I'm having a good day here.
You know, Kelly, the story really tells itself. There's not a lot of these types around, and I think you guys are doing great work, and I think you've got a great future ahead of you.
Right on. Thanks a lot, Allan.
And moving on here to Pacton Gold. This one's Dale again doing some drilling on the Red Lake Gold Project in Northwest Ontario. I know you always talk about this one.
Yeah, Pacton has some really good ground. It's on the trend. It's actually sort of on two trends. The main gold trend of the Gold Corp stuff, and also near where Great Bear has recently been doing very well with their discovery. Pacton is run by Dale Ginn, who's an exceptionally talented exploration geologist. I really like what they're doing, and now that preparatory work to get ready for this drilling, and now they're drilling. So, you know, they could drop big news on us at any time, and with the romance of what Great Bear has done, that could change the valuation very quickly. Currently, the 52-week range is on the low 9.5 cents, on the high 38.5 cents, currently trading at 11 cents. Another example, Rob, of the seasonality we're in. You got the tax loss selling that puts pressure on a lot of these juniors. But this is one that's drilling, trading at the 52-week low, and could drop some big news on us at any time. So another one that I think you want to have high up on the radar screen.
And this one here gave themselves a Christmas present early. Mux, McEwen Mining, Rob McEwen there raised a boatload of money and raised it fast.
Yeah, they announced it, I think, on Wednesday. Today, which is Friday, when we're recording this show, they've announced that it's done, it's closed. So they raised $50 million very fast. And McEwen Mining, I made them a pick at $2. I've taken a bit of a haircut here with it now trading at $1.59. But I think that haircut, I would be I'm banging the desk on this one right now. It's 52-week range is $1.61 on the low, $2.84 on the high, currently trading at $1.59, which means it's trading at a new 52-week low. And now that they've closed this financing off, why I made them a pick, and this financing makes them even more of a secure pick, is that they're a turnaround play, Rob. They've had some problems with their production, but they've recently also had some very good drill results. Rob McEwen was recently in the last month or so, was at the Beaver Creek conference. You want to look that up. He did a really good talk where he was very forthright in what problems they've been having and how they're going about trying to fix those problems. This $50 million will help them to fix those problems. And I think that this is a great turnaround for someone who wants exposure to a producer with a good profile going forward. I think this is a good turnaround play.
And wrapping up this week's list here, Skeena Resources, Golden Triangle, SK Creek Project. on the direction of Walter Coles Jr., who I have a call in, by the way. We'll try to get him on the show perhaps next week or so. But I know you like this one. They're active. They got their chart is on fire. A lot of good things here.
Seasonality, and I think it could, and it's in the Golden Triangle, which generally this time of the year, I'm worried about the Golden Triangle plays, Rob, because it gets cold up there and they can't drill. But SKE, Skeena, they've got a bunch of underground workings that they can drill right through the winter on. And I think that the combination of their recent drill results and that they're well financed, but the real romance of this story, Rob, is the whole reason that there is a Golden Triangle is because of the project that Skeena has. Back in the 1980s, there was a big gold rush up there because of the mines that Skeena and the people that found the mines are also involved with Skeena. They found the SK Creek mines up there, and it just caused a massive staking rush. And that excitement has basically continued all these years later. But what's really important, getting taken over now, the Malartic mine is one of the best big mines in Canada. Back in the 80s and 90s, when this was in production, there was a cutoff grade, I think, of about a half an ounce per ton, Rob, because the price of gold was so much cheaper back then. They left a bunch of material in the ground that at today's prices would be just money-making machine, and they're having real good success with it. And they've got all that underground mining, which I think is, you take all of those things into consideration. That's why these guys are bucking the trend on the seasonality. And I think that they can continue to do that into the new year because they can go underground drilling and keep tagging this hot, high-grade stuff.
So no need to worry about the run up here. Nothing to wait for. Just ride it.
Yeah, well, Rob, again, I think that, that's why I went into detail about, the things, why they're bucking the trend. You've got the seasonality going in their favor in about a month and a half. You've got the fact that they can go underground, the fact that they're hitting high grade, and they kind of know where to look because the guy who found SK Creek is involved with Skeena. So it's a really good combination, and I'm quite bullish on what they're doing.
Before we let you go here, Al, seasonality was last week's tip, and it was mentioned quite a bit here. What's this week's tip for investors?
I'm still going with the seasonality play, Rob. I think we've got about 3 weeks left here where people can take advantage of these bargains. They tend to start going away around the middle of December. We often get a Santa Claus rally in the last 10 days or so of December. So, this seasonality is a really important trend. It's almost like it never doesn't reward you as long as you're picking good stocks. And we've been putting together a bunch of good stocks. Also want to plug my company, Advanced Gold, because we're getting close to some drilling here pretty quickly on that big geophysical anomaly that I've been talking to you about lately, Rob. And we're in Mexico where you can drill year round. So on the heels of that, if we get some good results, I would expect a really strong news flow out of my company, Advanced. So lots of good stuff happening, lots of good companies to take advantage of based on seasonality. And that's the theme that I'll be going with for the next couple of weeks, Rob. But those bargains won't be around for long.
Appreciate that insight. That's Allan Berry from the Allan Berry Reports. Make sure you check out his newsletter. He's obviously picking a lot of winners and a lot of insight and knowledge here. So, Al, appreciate the time as always, and look forward to catching up to you next week.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. And basically, really, these days, a lot of my my picking is here on StockPulse. So yeah, I've got some good recent reports out in the last few months on AllanBerryReports.com, but this is where I've been hanging my hat lately with StockPulse, getting down deep into these companies and the trends and the seasonality. So, take a look at all of our shows of late on StockPulse.com.